Hello everyone and welcome to this very special Snap take on the Marvel Snap YouTube channel. I'm really excited for this opportunity. My name is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to take a look at both Kate Bishop and Marvel Boy. In addition to looking at those cards, we're going to look at every Spotlight cache that comes out this month. And finally, alliances have taught us that one of the best things about Marvel Snap is the ability to play with others, so I'm hoping that this video will serve as your introduction to the broader Marvel Snap community. We've got a content creator, a great Marvel Snap player from every single continent, except Antarctica obviously, and we're going to tell you about their best decks and their best brews for both Hawkeye and Marvel Boy, in addition to Spotlight cache cards, Red Hulk, and Blob. Let's get started with Hawkeye Kate Bishop. Hawkeye Kate Bishop is the season pass card for August, who will be releasing on 8/6 and available for purchase throughout the month. Once it is no longer available for purchase, this will be a Series 5 card that will cost 6,000 tokens. Her ability is on reveal, add 2 arrows to your hand. She is a 2/3 that adds 2 cards to your hand. Let's take a look at what those arrows do. There are 4 of them currently in the first is her basic arrow. This is a 1/1, and each arrow has a 50% chance of being created by Kate Bishop's on reveal. It is an on reveal if you play a card at this location next turn, plus 3 power. You may notice that that is the exact same stats and ability as the current Hawkeye in Marvel Snap. Kate Bishop's basic arrow is Hawkeye. She has a 50% chance of creating Hawkeye. Now, we can learn at least a couple of things about how Kate Bishop is intended to be used based on this. First, this card is just a 1/1 unless you play a card in its location next turn. What that means is Kate Bishop is a 2-drop that's meant to be played early in the game, not late in the game. There are 2-drops that are early in game plays. Cards such as Jeff. Jeff is an amazing play on turn 2. It gives you a lot of utility for the rest of the game. There are 2-drops that are meant to be played late in the game. Those would be cards like Shadow King or Hazmat that have a greater effect when they're used later in the game, once more cards are played, once their ability has greater effect. Kate Bishop's basic arrow tells us we want Kate early so that we can play the basic arrow by at latest turn 5, which means we have to have played Kate on turn 4 for the basic arrow to do anything, right? We want to play the basic arrow at latest on turn 5, or all it's done is give us a 1/1. There are also other options for things we can do with that basic arrow, but the general gist is this is giving us information about how we want to play that card. Next up, we have a Pym arrow. The Pym arrow is also a 1/1, and this one has an ongoing. This is the only arrow with an ongoing ability. The other 3 are on reveals. If your side of this location is full, plus 3 power. That's Ant-Man minus 1 power. That's old Ant-Man. Ant-Man used to be a 1/4. It became a 1/5 in an OTA several months back. Now, this gives us, again, another powerful ability. This one, however, can be played late. Later on in the game, if you drop that Pym arrow to fill a location, you're getting an extra 4 stats in that location. That's really nice stats for this arrow, and it's easier to use than the previous arrow. Good. So Pym arrow so far is perfectly fine to get. If you're playing Kate Bishop, you're generating a lot of cards, you're playing a lot of cards on the board, filling locations should be something that you are reasonably able to do, giving Pym arrow extra value. Next up, we have the grapple arrow. This is the one totally unique arrow that we're getting. This is a 1/3. On reveal, after you play your next card, move it to this location. Now, I was able to test out these cards, and what I did with Grapple Arrow, what I found was coolest with Grapple Arrow, was it was an immediate Nocturne trigger. On turn 4, triggering Athena to get rid of a location that I did not want. I was able to play Grapple Arrow, play Nocturne, and immediately pulled Nocturne over and changed that location. You can do other things such as boosting your Kraven, pulling things into a Hercules, and so on. If you don't want to move a card to the same location as Grapple Arrow, at the end of the game, you can either play Grapple Arrow last, or you can play it to fill a location, thus there is no room to move the next card. Or you can just play both cards in the same damn location. There are a lot of options here, but this card should be really good, especially with cards like Kingpin or cards like Kraven. This seems quite strong. It is the best base stats as well, so it's the best arrow to play to end the game if you can't fill a location or anything else. Finally, we have the Acid Arrow. This is very likely to be the strongest arrow. This is a 1/2, and it's a nice simple on-reveal switch sides. So it's 1 less negative power than Green Goblin at 2 less cost. That's amazing. This card is absolutely phenomenal. This is going to be create all sorts of synergies with cards like Debris and White Widow and so on, and Acid Arrow is great. So what does that mean for Kate Bishop? I think if we talk about this all together, what Kate Bishop is a contender for the best 2-on-2 in Marvel Snap. Your TLDR is Kate Bishop is going to be an important card for the game, for Marvel Snap. We should be keeping her in mind for a variety of decks that just want to be able to play cards. We'll talk about specific synergies as we go forward. The 2 drops that you want to consider playing on turn 2 are Jeff, White Widow, and Hawkeye. And I think they're the 3 best 2 drops on turn 2 in Marvel Snap outside of Scalers. We're talking Thena and Angela. The best regular deck. I'm not trying to scale. I'm not doing anything fancy. This just fits in my deck because it's good. Are Jeff, White Widow, and Hawkeye. You'll note that the other 2 are Series 5 cards. Hawkeye is a card you can buy. Let's go forward, look at synergies, decks, and more. One important and oft overlooked part of the Marvel Snap experience is variants. Currently, there's only one variant in the game for Hawkeye Kate Bishop. It is the Season Pass exclusive variant that you get for reaching level 50 of the Season Pass variant track. Each card this month in Spotlight Caches has a Flaviano variant. This is Kate Bishop Hawkeye's Flaviano. I think the coloring on this is absolutely amazing. I love this variant. I'm very excited to run it. I want to see what it looks like with different backgrounds. In particular, the color on those arrows is absolutely gorgeous. I'm very excited for this variant. In a moment, we're going to get to an overview of Kate Bishop's synergies and decks from some of Marvel Snap's best creators using this brand new card. But first, I'd like to ask you to hit sub on the Snap Judgments YouTube channel. We on our channel do 7 days a week of videos. 6 days a week, we do 3 brand new decks on the channel. Decks that you're not going to find anywhere else, decks that are ahead of the meta from some of the top players. On the 7th day, we do a huge podcast with some of Marvel Snap's biggest names. Recent guests include Binks and Interrobang. We have had most of Marvel Snap's biggest and best names on the YouTube. Please check it out. In addition, for the first 2 weeks of every season, we give away a season pass in every single video. All you have to do is sub and comment. There's a specific comment on each video. You leave it, you're entered to win the season pass for that day. Now, we're going to do that right here on the Marvel Snap YouTube, as long as Second Dinner allows me to. So all you have to do is hit sub to the Marvel Snap YouTube and leave a comment. I'm going to tell you what that comment is later on in this video. When you leave that comment, you are entered to win a season pass. I will announce that season pass winner this coming Friday on my own YouTube Snap Judgments. So make sure you sub here, leave a comment, and you're entered to win a season pass. And if you want more chances, every video this week on my channel, Snap Judgments Pod, has a Kate Bishop season pass with it. Oh, right, Kate Bishop's synergies. First, she feels like a cross between old Snowguard and Nico Minoru, and technically she feels like a cross between middle Snowguard. There was a point where Snowguard's 2 generated cards cost 2. It feels like that. Kate is a 2-3 that creates 2 1s. Snowguard was a 1-2 that created 2 3s. The Snowguard way of doing things is slightly more powerful in that it creates a cost curve, a curve where you can go play on turn 1, play on turn 2. But what Kate Bishop allows you to do, and what she teaches you, is that in Marvel Snap, there's a lot of other card games where you want to make sure you're spending every energy every turn and you're strongly penalized for not doing so. Marvel Snap is a game where it often makes sense to play something lower than curve, less than curve, in order to effectively play the game. Kate Bishop gives you a way to fill that curve with extra cards, extra power on the board. Nico Minoru is also a 1-2 that creates 7 different spells after she's played. You know what she's creating. Kate Bishop creates 2 cards that operate in a similar fashion to Nico Minoru's spells. Please note, Snowguard has spent a lot of time as an absolute staple of the meta, particularly in old Loki decks, and Nico Minoru is one of the most played and versatile cards in Marvel Snap. That this is a comparison for Kate Bishop suggests that this card is going to be quite powerful. Also, a reminder, we said this already, but there is a 50% chance of generating each arrow, which means if they're arrows you're looking for and you play Kate Bishop, you've got a 50% chance of seeing exactly what you need. That's really good odds. So Nico has a 1 in 7 chance for her move to the right, and she's often played in move decks even with that 1 in 7 chance. There's a 50% chance of in a move deck the grapple arrow coming up, which is amazingly useful and powerful. Stat-wise, and we often overlook the numbers on the cards in Marvel Snap, at worst, Kate Bishop is just a 2-3. A 2-3 is perfectly fine stats. That's a Jeff you never moved. It's not great, it's not ahead of curve, but it's not hurting you. There's nothing negative here. Other potential stat lines, assuming you're triggering the arrow, and 2 arrows do have triggers required to get their power. You can get a 3-5 with just Kate and an acid arrow. A 3-5 is really great stats, especially when it helps clog your opponent. A 3-6 with a grapple arrow, and now we're ahead of curve. We're ahead of the best 3s in the game, or most of the best 3s in the game. Or we can be a 3-7, which is about Cassandra Nova stats if you use either of the other 2 cards. All of those are great stat lines. She can be, if you play 2 arrows, from a 4-8 to a 4-11 in combination. Again, at almost every play pattern, as long as you're playing a single arrow, Kate Bishop is ahead of the curve in terms of stats she's generating. That's really good news, because one of the things to do when you're analyzing cards is look at how much effective stats this card puts down when it does the thing. And then we think about how easy it is to do the thing. And that's what card she synergizes with. So Thena loves extra ones to play for her trigger. If you own Thena, and I know Thena is a Series 5 card, so it's possible that you don't. If you own Thena, what Thena allows you to do is play a card, and then you want a 1-drop to play with that card that's slightly behind curve in order to give Thena her bonus of +3 power. Now, if you don't see Kitty Pryde, that's often very difficult. If you are running, however, Kate Bishop, all of a sudden, that play on turn 5 of, say, Gwenpool, last month's Season Pass card, or Ms. Marvel, and a 1 is opened up to you, which is going to pump Thena, allow you to get extra power on the board from that 1, and allow you to play the card that you actually needed to get on the board. Zoo really likes extra 1-cost cards, particularly Marvel Boy, the card we're going to talk about later on in this video, and Kazar really love having more 1-cost cards on the board. Marvel Boy is a 3-2 with a passive ability of, at the end of each turn, he gives 3 1-drops +1 power, and Kazar, of course, is a 4-4 ongoing that gives all 1-cost cards +1 power. Both of those are absolutely incredible. These are great with Kate Bishop. These 1-drops that you play for Kate are going to help Mockingbird get cheaper. Mockingbird the 6/10, who gets cheaper for playing any card that didn't start in your deck. You play 2 arrows, Mockingbird is now at 4/10. 4/10 is great stats. Obviously, you'll want other synergies to play Mockingbird in the deck, but that's a good start. Devil Dinosaur is always happy for you to have more cards in hand. Those cards are, without being played, converted to 2 power on Devil Dinosaur. That's always great. Clog and Junk are happy for the chance at acid and for the body. They are perfectly satisfied with those 2 cards. And Collector likes adding cards to your hand. This is +2 power on Collector, making Collector an immediate 2/4. There's also at least some use in move decks. I'm not sure if she's going to fit in move decks, which can be tight, but that grappling arrow is really great there. The downside is that this could be a 2-3 that does nothing, and it especially is almost guaranteed, outside of Devil Dinosaur, to do nothing if you play it on the last turn of the game. So it is worth knowing that this is a card that is better played early than late. It's still fine later in most situations, and a 2-3 isn't terrible stats, but it's not amazing upside. Alright, our friend Lauren Whatevs, who you can find at twitter.com/LaurenWhatevs or writing for Marvel Snap Zone, is absolutely incredible. She does a ton of deep data dives into Marvel Snap and card acquisition. This is the value of a Season Pass card, and why, almost no matter how good Kate Bishop is, she's worth buying. However, I do think Kate Bishop is going to be a really great and powerful card, but this is what Lauren has to say about why the Season Pass is going to be worth it. So a Series 5 card is either 6,000 tokens or, on average, 2.5 keys. You're going to save that if you just buy this card now. Assuming that you need to get this card later, you're going to save what amounts to 2.5 keys or 6,000 tokens. On top of that, you also get an extra 300 credits and 1,550 gold, especially if we're counting weekend missions. Obviously, weekend missions start and end the season, at least recently, by requiring you to have the Season Pass card, and you get gold for completing the weekend missions with the Season Pass card. 1,550 gold is a lot. Cosmetics, you get 3 exclusive variants, 1 premium mystery variant, 2 mystery variants, 3 avatars, 2 titles, 1 card back, and 1 emote. That's 7,250 worth of cosmetics. In the end, with cosmetics, the Season Pass is worth $212.92. It costs you Excuse me. In the end, if you're not worried about cosmetics, you're like, I don't care about cosmetics in Marvel Snap, that's fine, but it's still worth $122.31. And the cost in American dollars is $9.99. That's 21.31 times the value with cosmetics and 12.24 times value without cosmetics. There's no other value in Marvel Snap that even approaches just buying the season pass every month. You should be buying the season pass. I personally like to consider this game as close to a subscription model as possible. I think that buying the season pass gets you so ridiculously far ahead, over 10 times value from anything else, from not buying it, that the season pass is a must buy. But why should you buy Kate Bishop specifically? What is Kate Bishop specifically? What decks will you put her in? The first deck we're going to look at is from Docty. Our friend Docty is the king of new Marvel Snap card content. Every single week he does an amazing deep dive into the new cards, so if you're interested and want another opinion, please do check out Docty's video. Docty has 3 decks, one of which that I would like to try is putting Kate Bishop into a Lockjaw deck. Now, what you'd really like to do here is play Psylocke into Lockjaw, but then Kate Bishop is going to trigger even if you throw her into Lockjaw on turn 5. You can even do that and play Thor in a different lane. But further, if you play Kate on 2, and then Thor on 3 and Lockjaw on 4 or 5, playing Hawkeye with that Lockjaw adds extra value, right? Playing those 1-drops into Lockjaw adds extra value. It can even, with Grapple Arrow, pull one of your existing cards onto Lockjaw without making it go in. So let's say you have a Beta Ray Bill that you want on that Lockjaw lane, but you do not want to cycle. Well, the Grapple Arrow will allow you to do that as soon as you play them in the right order. This is extremely powerful. This is a really cool and creative use of Lockjaw and Kate Bishop, and one of the more out-of-the-box ideas we'll look at. Props to Docty. Next up, we have Miley C. Miley is an Asian creator who has stepped away from Marvel Snap, but the change to Loki is something that Miley absolutely loved, and so he has returned in order to build a really great Loki deck. I featured this on my channel last week. This deck has been stellar, and Kate Bishop goes amazingly in it. The basic gist of what you're trying to do with this deck is you want to be able to have really powerful cards and really powerful combos, and then you want to be able to play the opponent's cards and combos for cheaper than you otherwise could. That means scaling threats like Athena and Angela, and then control threats like Quake, Cosmo, and Shang-Chi. So what we're doing with Kate Bishop here is we're saying we have a better chance at triggering Athena, and we get a little bit of extra control and power on the board by playing her. That seems stellar to me. You can even use Kate Bishop to put a card on Angela with that Grapple Arrow and then pull that card off Angela, giving you extra Angela triggers. This seems extremely strong, extremely viable, and like one of the better places you can play Hawkeye. Old Loki was going to be completely insane with Hawkeye, because old Loki ran Snowguard and Agent Coulson, at least partially, because they generated cards in hand, right? Kate Bishop's cards in hand don't work specifically with Loki. They're instead just a powerful play that you can use on curve in order to help make this deck more powerful and effective. Next up, we have .Geo. This Italian streamer was #1 on the Infinite leaderboard in January and won the Snap Grand Prix, a major tournament that we threw. One of the best players in Marvel Snap and the absolute bounce goat. I asked him if he would be willing to make me a Hawkeye deck, and this is what he came up with. This is a Hitmonkey Hawkeye deck. With this deck, you are just playing Kate Bishop on curve, or you're playing her after Collector. Collector should be really, really easy to get big here. You have Hood that generates cards, you have Beast and Falcon to return cards to hand, and you have Kate Bishop. So it's very unlikely for in any game Collector to be less than a 2/6 or so, and you don't have to really worry about the Angela problem, where like you'll often want to play ones on Angela, but then you don't want to Beast on Angela because it becomes hard to play on curve effectively after that. Well, Collector solves that problem for you. This list, Kate Bishop, is very simple. She either gets played on turn 2, or she can be played on turn 4 or even turn 5. On turn 4, she's a good play along with a bounce card, although be careful of hand size. On turn 5, playing her with Black Swan means you have 2 free ones to play at the end of the game. Those will be great for your Hip Monkey and to trigger your Bishop, as well as powering up your Collector. Really, really impressed with the idea and concept behind this deck. I think that this is going to be very powerful and one of Kate Bishop's best homes. Next up, we have Dubos. Dubos is an Argentinian streamer. I told you, we're going all over the world. Dubos is a wonderful, high-energy streamer who has peaked within the top 10 of the Marvel Snap Infinite leaderboard as recently as last season, and he wants to try Kate Bishop as in a move bounce list, which is a brilliant way to do it, because again, you have a 50% chance of generating an extra move card. This deck is starved for more move. You can see it's running Iron Fist, Ghost Spider, and Doctor Strange. It really wants more move cards to the point where it runs Nico for that 1 in 7 chance, so of course it runs Hawkeye for that extra 50% chance. As an extra spicy trick for this deck, if you play that Grapple Arrow, then you Hulkbuster one of your move targets, Human Torch, Dagger, or Vulture. The Hulkbuster will first, on reveal, attach to the target, and then the move will happen. That seems so strong. Also, if you have Hercules, consider Hercules over Nico Minoru, because Nico Minoru's odds are very low to be useful in this deck. However, she is still a very powerful card. In particular, I really do like her +2 on the Human Torch. It is very strong. Next up, we have Ekmati, a Brazilian player who you can find on Twitter. Another top 20 player in Marvel Snap who is trying a Bog junk list. This is using White Widow, Viper, and Dr. Octopus to junk up the opponent's board. That Viper is obviously intended to hit the hood, although a non-used Rocket Raccoon is still a good hit, as is a non-used basic arrow. But Hawkeye here is again giving you an extra clog card and extra ways to move that Werewolf by Night. 3 of the arrows are on reveals. On reveals, move Werewolf by Night. Moving Werewolf by Night means Werewolf by Night has more power. Nice and simple, right? You have to be a little bit careful with Shadow King in this, i.e. don't immediately Shadow King your Werewolf or Sage lane, but outside of that, there's a lot to like here. This is probably where I personally am going to begin with this card. I am a huge Bounce and Werewolf by Night fan. These are, Werewolf might be my favorite card of Marvel Snap outside of maybe Beast, and Bounce is easily my favorite archetype. I love this idea. Next up, we're traveling to Canada for Gnome Plays. Please note the 2 underscores. Gnome is a Twitch streamer who sits around the top 50 and is a wonderful, charming human being and friend of the show. Gnome has yet another bounce list. This is the most basic bounce list we've seen. This one doesn't bother with Black Swan, it doesn't bother with anything else. This one is sort of built more around Collector, to the point where we're adding Snowguard and Nico, the cards that are sort of make up Hawkeye's DNA. This one is really cool, really strong, but similar enough to that .Geo one that the play pattern should be familiar. However, remember for this list in particular, you're trying to save Beast if possible for around turn 5 to get as many 1s to 0 as possible, so that you can play them for the biggest Hip Monkey possible. The recently buffed 3/3 Hip Monkey can get absolutely huge, as can Collector if you're using this deck properly. Okay, next is the great Safety Blade. Safety Blade streams on Twitch as Safety Blade. We're all the way in Australia now. Safety is a Marvel Snap Zone writer and brilliant crafter of new cards. I tested all these decks out, and this one right now is my favorite. It feels like it's the strongest of the straight Kate Bishop decks, although fair warning, I am currently playing against bots, and when you're playing against real people, what's good often changes. This one feels great. A Gwenpool into a Bishop, a Beast, or Falcon and Black Swan is huge power. Just absolutely insane power. If you have Kate early in this list, or you're bouncing those 1-drops late, it's really strong. If you don't have Hit Monkey and you play your cards wisely, Sage is a backup Hit Monkey. You have both Hawkeyes in this list, because if you go Hawkeye Classic on turn 1 into Hawkeye New on turn 2, you just have a good curve, right? This deck is all about having that really clear and consistent curve and being able to put a lot of power on the board because of it. Hopefully you were able to get Cassandra Nova from Deadpool's Diner. If you were, she is here largely as Arishem tech, so how much Arishem you're seeing will determine how valuable she is. Alright, next up, Ika, who you can find on Twitch at Ika_MTS. Ika is a phenomenal deck builder. Ika is building yet another Loki list. I think this one's really great. This is a Loki Dino, which is very classic. Originally, when Loki was first animated, we thought he would go in Loki Dex, not specifically into his own archetype. Well, we learned very quickly that Loki was an archetype all unto himself, but the new Loki really does like Devil Dino, because if you have that Devil Dino in hand, it's not removing it, it's not replacing it. So you can play Loki on 3, and if Dino is in hand, well, you've got lots of ways to keep that Dino nice and big, especially if you're getting a lot of big cards from the opponent. You also have extra ways to keep that hand size big with Snowguard, Agent Coulson, and Hawkeye in order to power up that Devil Dino, and all of those cards will likewise power up the Collector. Again, Hawkeye's my favorite Hawkeye synergy, the best Kate Bishop synergy in my opinion right now, is Thena, and this is an extremely powerful way to utilize those two cards together. Alright, next up, we have Yo Woody MJ. Yo Woody MJ is very often the top American on the Infinite Leaderboard. He is, as of this recording, sailing at number 3 on the Infinite Leaderboard for the July season. He is a phenomenal player. This is his sort of good stuff mid-range deck. The goal for this deck is to end the game sort of playing Ajax and Hazmat after playing a card on Hope Summers, a previous season pass card of March, after playing a card on Hope Summers on turn 5. If you can do that, Ajax often ends up a 5/20. Hawkeye here is again a way to power up that Thena throughout the game. It also gives you an extra card to play on Hope Summers should you need to toward the end of the game. Again, Kitty Pryde is the ultimate Thena enabler, but Hawkeye gives you extra ways to make that happen. If you go Thena, and then you play Hawkeye, or you play Hawkeye, then you play Thena, you can play Thena and a 1 right away, which is immediately going to give you that +3 power. I guess that's the way you should probably do that. And if you get that extra energy from cards like Hope Summers, you can end up playing Shang-Chi and Juggernaut to end the game for an almost unstoppable combo. Finally, you also have that Nocturne grapple hook play that I talked about earlier for this list. I think this list is going to be incredibly strong and worth trying out. All right, final thoughts. Does Kate Bishop look worth it? So she's great stats and great utility. That's what you want in a Marvel Snap card, right? You want great stats. You want stats that are ahead of what rate you would usually get from playing 2 to 4 energy. And you want cards that have utility and use in a lot of situations. That's Kate Bishop in a nutshell. That means this card is very, very likely to be great. Plus, this is, given the value, what amounts to a free card. It's a card you will either have to unlock later using resources of far greater value than just buying the season pass. There are tons of ready-built homes for Kate. We just looked at 9 of them. Plus, the season pass card is basically always worth it since last August. The card that comes in the season pass has been meta relatively soon, either immediately or relatively soon after that season pass, since last August, a year ago with Dokken. Every single season pass has been valuable, has been worth it, has been played in top tier decks, except for Black Swan. However, Black Swan, February's season pass card, is in July and August finding uses in bounce decks, finally. So every single season pass has found value and been worth it, a card that you want to own in order to open up decks and play patterns in Marvel Snap. There was one season pass card that was way below curve. It was Gilgamesh, released as a 5/7. Gilgamesh was, during the course of his season, buffed to a 5/9. That suggests that should Kate Bishop underperform in any meaningful way, she will be adjusted to be more powerful. Plus an extra 300 credits, 1,500 gold, 6 variants, 3 of which are exclusive, 3 avatars, 2 titles, 1 card back, and 1 emote, and still 1 Series 5 card you don't have to worry about. I think you should buy Kate Bishop. I hope I've made that clear. I hope the argument is clear. Incredibly powerful decks, incredibly versatile. This is the cheapest way to get her. You should get Kate Bishop, and if you're not going to get Kate Bishop, you should at least try and win her. Before we look forward to this month, please keep the following in mind. First and foremost, OTAs are twice a month and patches once. They could change anything we're talking about here for any of these cards. For example, Loki was a totally different card a week ago at this time. Loki has since changed. If I were evaluating Loki prior, my suggestions and recommendations will be different. I don't know what the patches will be, I don't know what the OTA will be. I'm going to do my best with current context. We're also going to look at every Spotlight cache for this month before we deep dive in on this week. Unless you have unlimited resources, and some people in this game do, some do not, unless you have unlimited resources, planning in advance is extremely important. So knowing what's coming this month, as announced by Second Dinner, is hugely important in figuring out what to do this week. Finally, if you don't want to just take my word, over on Marvel Snap Zone, I have a survey that goes out to over 50 content creators and top players, where they rank every single card that is coming this season. So if you're interested in that ranking, please do check out that article over on Marvel Snap Zone. In addition, if you'd like gameplay for these decks or any of the decks on my channel, please check out the stream team. We have 7 days a week of people streaming top decks on my channel. What I do is the following. I find and present top decks, I show replacements where possible for high series cards, and I give a turn-by-turn breakdown on how to play that deck. If you want specific gameplay for those decks, you should check out these following streamers on Twitch, and then the next day they release a YouTube video with games from that stream. So on Mondays, we have the great Gregor2424. Tuesdays, new card day featuring new cards is Prashant. On Wednesdays, it is Gaming with Flash X. Thursdays, we have twitch.tv/Parry Manilow, one of the best names in Snap. Friday is the Pirate King himself, Tucker. Saturday is a teacher like myself, wonderful human being, Fathor Newman. And Sunday is former pro wrestler, King of Canada, JJ. So please check them out. I'd also like to shout out quickly Power On Gaming. Power On Gaming is an amazing collection of streamers that give voices to some of the smaller creators in the community and otherwise marginalized voices. Awesome people. Check out Power On Gaming and check out these great streamers for some great Marvel Snap gameplay. All right, now we're on to Marvel Boy. Marvel Boy is the Spotlight card that releases alongside Kate Bishop, coming out on 8/6. Marvel Boy is a 3/2. Series 5, 6,000 tokens. You can get them in Spotlight caches. After each turn, give 3 of your 1-cost cards plus 1 power. That's a lot of power. That's 12 power by the end of the game, right? Because turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. 4 times 3 is 12. So that's plus 12 power. That's a 314. That's insane. Marvel Boy is an absolute house. Ton of stats, amazing tempo. Marvel Boy comes in Spotlight caches with Red Hulk and Blob. These are the Spotlight variants. I told you, Flaviano all month. The Marvel Boy Flaviano is really great. It looks like a Kree uniform. Marvel Boy is a Kree super soldier. And then we have a very cool Red Hulk and a Blob that looks like he's straight out of Mad Max. This week is amazingly powerful. We're going to talk about it in a lot of detail later on, so we're going to go through this one relatively quickly. Next up, we have Wiccan. Wiccan is coming out next week and a 4/7. On reveal, if you spent all your energy this game, plus 2 max energy, so ideally you're playing this on turn 3 or 4, and if you're playing it on turn 3, Psylocke or Zabu, or 4, you need to have spent all of your energy otherwise. Nice and simple, right? One way to spend your energy on turn 1 and 2 is to use this with cards that are basically never played, like Quicksilver and Domino, but you can also run Quicksilver, just make sure you have a 1, and then run cards like Zabu and Psylocke in order to try and get Wiccan out and run a lot of 4s so that you can make sure if you don't draw Wiccan by turn 3, you have a 4 to play on 3, so you're still spending all your energy. So if you Wiccan and then you're really powerful across the curve. This works amazingly with 4-cost cards because what it means is on the last turn of the game, you can play 2 4-drops, which is what Zabu did that was so powerful for all that time. So being able to play, for example, Shang-Chi and Enchantress seems incredibly powerful. You can mix it up other ways, but the double 4-drop thing, I think since Wiccan is a 4-drop, is a really powerful and effective way to build the deck. This is an ability we've never seen before in Marvel Snap. We've never seen it if you spent all your energy this game trigger, and we've never seen a plus 2 max energy. So this is going to be completely new. It could be completely insanely overpowered, or it can be really clunky and hard to use. It's going to be very hard to know until we get this one in our hands, but anything new adds a new element and new dimension to the game, so I'm excited for that. Wiccan's Flaviano is gorgeous, with a lovely like pink-purple spell happening, and Wiccan comes with 2 cards. Comes with Loki and Pixie. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that you go out of your way to get Loki. right now unless you are playing Arishem. Loki is even better than he was before in Arishem. Absolutely incredible card to play, especially on turn 2. Completely shuts down, or almost completely shuts down, that counterplay, that brutal counterplay of Darkhawk and Cassandra Nova, turning them into great cards, but no longer nearly as busted, insane, powerful cards against Arishem, which solves a lot of the problems. All of your cards at -1 cost, while you have +1 energy from Arishem, is amazing. In a regular deck, it's undetermined how good he is. No one's quite sure how powerful this card is yet. If you're interested in some Loki decks, please check out my channel, where I have some really interesting Loki brews from some of the top players in Marvel Snap. But does that mean they're great? Again, really, really early to tell. Pixie, however, is a build around. Really nice Pixie variant too. But Pixie is a very, very cool build around, a very nice build around, where if you have Agent Coulson, you can go Pixie into Coulson and only get the benefit of the Pixie cards, which is a very powerful thing to do and works especially well with current Lockjaw, with Lockjaw return to being able to have all the cards played into him. Very cool, again, and very powerful ability. I think Pixie is worth having. This was the week I was planning to suggest everyone open because Loki and Pixie are both so powerful, but now I think Loki is more important, in particular if you want to play Arishem. And if you are interested in playing, for example, Beta Ray Bill decks with Pixie, then you should open it, but Pixie is not one of the top decks in the meta currently. Pixie has homes with Annihilus, Beta Ray Bill, and Cersei, so if those decks are your style, then Pixie might be worth looking into. However, this Loki variant is from the Al Ewing Loki run, and I love that run, so I need this Loki variant personally. The next week we have Speed, Wiccan's twin brother, coming after Marvel Boy and Kate, who were dating in that Young Avengers run. We've got Speed, who is a 3/3 ongoing, +1 power for each turn in which you spent all your energy. Note that this is an ongoing, which means that you need to be able to play every bit of energy every turn to maximize the ability. How many turns you need to spend all your energy for this to be really good? Given that its ability is just power, I think you need to get this to at least a 3/6, which means 3 turns of spending all your energy. That seems doable, but am I doing that much work for a 3/6? I'm not entirely sure. In Surfer, maybe, where I very often am spending all of my energy in Surfer for almost every turn. If I can make this a 3/8, is it worth it? I think now we're starting to look like it's worth it, especially if we're doing anything with either that ongoing ability, i.e. Captain America, or Spectrum, or we're doing something with that 3 cost, i.e. Surfer. I think this is a Surfer card. I think this is a decent Surfer card, but not necessarily one you have to have. However, this comes with Jeff. Jeff remains one of the very most important cards in Marvel Snap, a really, really adorable Jeff variant as well, who seems to be in a bath with some rubber duckies, but Jeff is a must-have card in Marvel Snap, and God, that Flaviano Speed is gorgeous. I think this is my favorite of the variants for this month. Look at those colors. That's gorgeous. But either way, Jeff is a must-have card. If you are playing basically all Arishem right now, I'd rather have Loki than Jeff. But if you're playing basically anything else, I think Jeff is one of the most important cards to own in Marvel Snap. Iron Lad used to be an extraordinarily important card that was in almost every deck. Iron Lad has since lost popularity, along with the change to Zabu to being an on-reveal from being an ongoing, and thus Iron Lad is no longer, at least currently, must-have, but that could change given time. We're not sure how good Iron Lad is going to be going forward, but right now Iron Lad's not in many top decks. However, it's entirely possible that you're just supposed to open for Jeff if you still need Jeff this week. That Iron Lad variant with Iron Lad Jeff is unbelievably cute. This is just gorgeous variant month, an absolutely like A+ home run of a month for variants. Finally, the day after my birthday, August 27th, we have Emperor Hulkling, who is a 6/11 at the start of the game, copy the text of a random 6-cost card. That's not a 6-cost card otherwise in the game, that's any 6-cost card. I ran through every 6, and this is probably not going to be great. I'm reserving space to be wrong here. I'm hoping that I'm wrong, because sometimes your opponent's playing Destroy and your Hulkling became a null, right? We're going to need to see how often Hulkling becomes in practice the thing you want it to be. I am confident if this is not good, this will receive a buff, but right now I don't see why I would play this over just the 6 cost I want. If this cost 5, I would play the crap out of it, or if it was a 6 that copied 5s, I would play the crap out of it. I think as a 6 that copies 6, it's sort of the worst of both worlds, but I do expect this to not see a ton of play and then get buffed if it is not up to par. Expect Please is just from me, not from Second Dinner, and it's based largely on the immediate change to Hydro Bob. This is a very nice Emperor Holden variant, and it comes with both Cannonball and Nimrod. I think this is very likely to be the easiest week to skip this month. Cannonball had a home with Professor X, but Professor X was nerfed, and had a home with Dr. Octopus, but Dr. Octopus was nerfed, and now Cannonball is just a good card that does not have a great home, at least currently, and thus Cannonball is not a requirement currently. Nimrod is really great in specific Destroyer archetypes and Phoenix Force, but is a Series 4 card, I believe the only Series 4 card releasing in Spotlights this month, and B, outside of being half the cost in tokens of the other cards, and B, not necessarily in the meta. This seems like were I to plan to skip a week this month, the week I'm most likely to do so. Let's get to Marvel Boy. And now that we've talked about every single card coming this month, my question to you for a season pass is, which of these cards are you most looking forward to and why? Leave a comment right on this video, make sure you're subscribed to the Marvel Snap YouTube, and as you do so, answer that question and I will give you a season pass announced Friday on Snap Judgments Pod, my YouTube channel. Alright, Marvel Boy is a 3/2. After each turn, give 3 of your 1-cost cards plus 1 power. This is so strong. There's going to be a lot of Marvel Boy in and out of the meta because a 3/14 is absolutely crazy power. If you miss a turn of his trigger, if you play him and then play a turn later Shauna or Squirrel Girl, right? You're still at a 3/11. You would play a 3/11 every day. If you only have 2 1s out the whole game, you still have a 3/10. You would play a 3/10 every day. This card feels like a must open to me if you play any type of deck that this is good in. Marvel Boy has 2 variants. We have the Flaviano that we already talked about, and we have the one that I am hoping to open. This is the super rare that should release the day after you get Marvel Boy. If you get Marvel Boy the first week in Spotlight Caches, the next day, the next time your shop refreshes, this variant should appear. This is the Chris Anka. I love Chris Anka art. This is so cool. This is my favorite variant releasing this month, not Spotlight, not anything. This is my favorite variant releasing this month, period. I'm in love. So if you're interested in variants and having a really pretty collection, this Marvel Boy, friends, this Marvel Boy. All right, synergies. On turn 3, with 3 1s, he's a 3/14, 2 1s, 3/10. This is top line stats for a 3-drop on par with Silver Surfer, Werewolf by Night, Hitmonkey, and Sage, and you'll note that every single one of those cards has been meta at 1 point or more than 1 point. This is top of Marvel stats, Marvel Snap stats. You're not going to do significantly better than this as a 3-drop. All of these cards require some work and deck building. You don't just get to play a 3 and have more than 7 or 8 power most of the time. And that would just be something along the lines of Gladiator or Cassandra Nova, where you get that. If you're going to, double base Cassandra Nova, then you have to do work. And that's what this card does. This works amazingly with Hawkeye Kate Bishop. If you play a 1, you're losing 2 power, which but Kate gives you 2 more 1s, right? That you can play on turn 4. After playing this card, you're going to get top line stats from this. Top line stats spread out, so you're going wide instead of tall. You love to see it. Almost anyone wants this, but 2 in particular make extra sense to me. I tried to figure out how to make this work with Deadpool. I don't believe it does. But Kitty Pryde and Squirrel Girl both absolutely love this card. Kitty Pryde getting basically double power, getting 2 power each turn she's played. We've seen that. We've watched that movie before. That was the best card in Marvel Snap. Meanwhile, Squirrel Girl just immediately means you have 3 triggers. And Squirrel Girl saying, I represent, if you play Squirrel Girl on 1 and then you play Marvel Boy on 3, each of those squirrels gets plus turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. It gets plus 4 power, so the squirrels are now 5s and the Squirrel Girl is now 6. You just got a Dr. Doom. You built your own Doom. Congratulations. So this means that Zoo decks and Patriot decks make a lot of sense, because Zoo and Patriot decks further buff those squirrels, those Kitty Pryde, stuff like that. Yes, this card can be hard countered by Killmonger, but Kyra is a card of Marvel Snap that could potentially be back in the meta for this. Electra and Shadow King also provide value. Kyra again protects that from that Electra value, but nothing currently in Marvel Snap protects from that Shadow King value, which means that you probably want to spread these cards out. However, that means armor can't protect them should you decide to use armor as your protection, so there's up and down everywhere. He's also a vulnerable card to Red Guardian, as is everything. However, any game where this card works goes off anyone who's not running hard counters. If you see your curve, you've got an amazingly powerful, crazy strong card. Cool. Let's look at decks. We're going to start again with our friend Safety Blade. Safety you can find on Twitter at safetyblade_HS. Safety is again a phenomenal Australian player, Marvel Snap Zone writer, and genius deck builder. If you remember the Professor X Cannonball decks that ran Thena and Iron Man and all that stuff, those were called Slayer Blade and created by the great Safety Blade. Safety decided to put Marvel Boy into this shell, which runs 3 1-drops, Kitty, Nightcrawler, and Squirrel Girl, and then gets the extra 1-drops needed from Kate Bishop and Marvel Boy. This shell was very, very powerful in testing. You've got Mysterio and Squirrel Girl, and then the Kate Bishop cards to make Mockingbird cheaper. You've got Hawkeye so that you can afford to play everything. This is a very cool deck, and honestly, relatively cheap, right? If you buy your season passes, you should have, if you are a person who buys your season passes, and again, I cannot urge you more strongly to buy your season passes. Hope Summers, Hawkeye, and Gwenpool are all season pass cards, which means you'll really have had Mockingbird to be able to play this deck. Nocturne is very good here, particularly with Hawkeye, but could easily just be another good card. We're thinking Jeff here, but potentially Thena, potentially something like Bishop makes sense. There's a ton of cards that make a lot of sense here in that Nocturne spot. Whereas the only then high series card you'll need is Kitty Pryde, who is a Series 4, and Marvel Boy. So this is a relatively cheap and extremely powerful thing to do should you decide to get this deck from our friend Safety. Next up, we have Avazord, a Brazilian streamer who often sits near the top of the Infinite leaderboard and is very often one of the most creative deck builders. Ava brings us a zoo list. This is a Marvel Boy zoo where you're fundamentally just trying to get some ones down. Please note that Kitty and Angela are not common to zoo, but again, Kitty makes too much sense with Marvel Boy not to run. And at the end of the game, if you decide to go Kitty and Gilgamesh, you've just got an absolutely crazy power spike. Ideally here, you're doing something like Squirrel Girl into Angela, into Marvel Boy, into Kyra Kitty. And then you're just, the rest of the curve should be clear. Blue Marvel or Khazar, and then Gilgamesh and Kitty again. And just dominate. So much crazy power to this list. This might be the best zoo deck. It is missing the Shadow King that's in a lot of them because Marvel Boy and Shadow King do not play nice. I would assume that this is part of the reason for the Luke Cage nerf, but this is still such a strong and interesting way to go with this list. You want to give extra power to Ant-Man, who's already a 1/5? Yes, please. Next up, we have Spyro from South Africa. Spyro has another zoo list. This is a current standard zoo that's running Ant-Man, Nico, Nightcrawler, and Squirrel Girl as its 1-drops, but then it also has Shauna to generate enough 1-drops for everybody. Please note this one doesn't bother with Gilgamesh. Instead, it's trying to use Cull Obsidian and Mockingbird as your late game power spikes. It's very easy for Squirrel Girl and Shauna to make your Mockingbird basically free. It'll cost 1 if you get both of those cards down, and then a demon from Nico will get you the rest of the way there if that's something you want. But Marvel Boy should have no shortage of targets for this list. This list is all about just putting out stats more than your opponent thinks is possible, and when you can trick them on the number of stats they need to win, you win extra cubes. Next up, we have our Austrian friend Sizer2654. Sizer streams every day for hours. He is, as of this recording, the #1 ranked player in the Infinite leaderboard. He's our friend. Please check him out on Twitch. Sizer is phenomenal and brilliant, and Sizer fundamentally started this new move renaissance we've seen. There was around last August, Lambie Series, the best player ever in Marvel Snap. Lambie Series created a deck called Silky Smooth. It was a Silk Angela Kitty deck that ran Kraven and used Silk to like ping pong and bounce and power cards. Well, that deck had fundamentally gone away. It was a good deck, but not a great one. Sizer, and then the deck has gotten around, so creators like Barzy and Yo Woody MJ have created top-notch decks out of it. Brought it all the way back with starting with this deck. Marvel Boy makes all the sense in the world in this list. This list is all about giving extra power to cards, so we can give extra power to Kitty, Nightcrawler, Hydra Bob, which means Hydra Bob is just gigantic. Nightcrawler immediately becomes a gigantic mover. We already talked about Kitty, and then we have Hawkeye for the extra ones we need. That Hawkeye play also makes a lot of extra sense with Elsa Bloodstone. This list should be very, very powerful. I'm waiting to see if it's so powerful, if it goes so tall that we could perhaps even cut Shang-Chi. If so, Angela is the ad. If you're missing any card here, Angela is the ad. But this list seems like it's really, really cool. So go check out Sizer, who created this monstrosity. Next up, we have our friend Phil J. Woodward, who you can find on Twitter at that name. Phil created a sort of Hitmonkey dump deck that I've had a lot of fun with for months. I know a lot of players have had Infinite with this over the months. I think Marvel Boy is an amazing, amazing add to this list. So basically what you want to do is you would like to go, you would like to just play Sunspot early. And then you would like to very much avoid playing other one-drops. On turn 3, you play, unless you see Marvel Boy, then you play Squirrel Girl early, excuse me. But you play Bishop, you play Khazar, you play Black Swan, and then you play all the cards in Hitmonkey, and you win. Zero's here to make sure that Titania doesn't ruin your life. Your Bishop easily gets like 314, your Marvel Boy represents around a 314, and then your Hitmonkey is like 17 power. And you win, right? Like, you just win. When this deck goes off. This is a combo deck. It doesn't do a ton when its combo doesn't happen, but when its combo happens, this is Chef's Kiss beauty. Absolutely powerful deck. If you decide not to get Marvel Boy, by the way, the other card that goes in here is Strong Guy. Also, this is another relatively cheap deck, assuming you buy Season Passes. Hitmonkey, Black Swan are former Season Pass cards. You don't need... Oh, Martyr Series 3. You don't need Hydra Bob for this list in particular, and Marvel Boy can actually be replaced relatively simply by Strong Guy. At that point, make Hydra Bob be Blade. Cool. Alright. Hey, the last couple decks are created by me. You can find me on YouTube at Snap Judgments Pod. This is a deck I hit Infinite with last October or November. I wanted to prove that a Series 3 only deck could hit Infinite. I have decided to add Marvel Boy to it. I played this. I was not losing with it, but again, bots. This seems like it's putting up just absolutely stupid power all the way out of nowhere. Your basic goal here is to use Bast to pump up your whole board, and then Marvel Boy to pump them up even further. You get out Squirrel Girl, and then you get out Marvel Boy, and that gives you the tempo to sort of do whatever you want. That plus Iron Man, and especially that plus Iron Man plus Mystique, is very much enough to win a lane. Valkyrie takes care of anything your opponent does that's too big for you, that you don't want to deal with. Blue Marvel gives you a further buff to all your stuff. I am in love. This deck is an absolute blast. There's a possibility that I cut Mr. Sinister for Kate Bishop, because I think if I can play Kate Bishop on 2 and then Bast on 3, making the 1/1 arrows become 1/3s seems like a worthwhile endeavor to me, especially if I can do that while playing like a Hood or a Squirrel Girl or Mysterio or something else. Mysterio with Bast is just a 2/9. This is such a cool and powerful deck. This is another place that I am starting with, particularly Marvel Boy. And finally, this is an Idiot's deck. This is the style of deck that is created by my friend Gunny T, who runs all of these Snap Judgments tournaments. By the way, if you like Marvel Snap tournaments, we run an absolutely insane amount of them. We run a giant league, which is like a game a week at your own schedule, and then we run very quick tournaments a lot of evenings. So if you're interested, you should check out our Discord. But this is Gunny's styled Idiots deck, where basically what we're trying to do is drop a bunch of, you guessed it, big, dumb idiots. We want to play as many big cards as we can. So ideally, what this deck wants to do is not the Marvel Boy pattern, but the Marvel Boy pattern works perfectly fine here. You would very much like to play Mysterio into Mockingbird, into Sasquatch or Mockingbird, and then if you got a 1-down, then you can play Cull on 4, whatever, Crossbones on 5, right? And then, or Mockingbird on 5, whatever, you get the idea. And then you can just play a free Scar with other stuff on 6, but that doesn't always work. So when that doesn't happen, you can play Squirrel Girl into Marvel Boy, and then you can play Cull Obsidian on that Squirrel, and then now all of a sudden your Mockingbird is cheap enough to get down, right? And this gives you an alternate play pattern while those ones are growing, and give you an extra ability to play Crossbones. I think this is at least an interesting try on the deck. And again, Squirrel Girl and Marvel Boy is enough of a package to be worth running. And then we've got Kate because she creates some ones, Hood because it creates 2 ones, one of which makes Mockingbird cheaper. Hood also works amazingly well with Nico, and Marvel Boy sort of like mitigates the downside of that Hood at least a little bit as well. So there's a lot to like here. There's a lot of things to do. Ending the game with like a Demon Shang Scar is just insanely overpowered. I think that this is, again, a really powerful place to start looking at how to play Marvel Boy. So does Marvel Boy look good? I mean, if you like Zoo at all, this card's going to be a must. I could have shared you like 15 different Zoo decks, but I didn't because like you get the idea from the first 2, right? If you like Zoo at all, Marvel Boy's a must. And yes, Killmonger and Shadow King are bad for the card, but so many cards are at their worst their first week because of the card release model. With only 1 or at most 2 cards releasing each week, they are very often hard countered as people who try them and out are faced by people who didn't get them and thus are playing the counters, the answers to those decks. After that first week, the next card comes out that people have to counter or they need to normalize against, and you're safer to play the new card. I think that there will be times that this card is very hard to play because of Killmonger and Shadow King, particularly the first week. But I do think that this is too much power on one card to not be great if you play decks that can take advantage. We've been wrong before, both high and low, however, so there is a specific rule for this. Now, many of you perhaps remember War Machine, the 4/6 that lets you play a card anywhere. It's now a 4/7. Prior to release, almost everyone was extremely high on that card. We thought that card was going to be amazing. Likewise, Loki, when he came out last September, was generally thought to be a mediocre card at best. Loki ended up being a meta-dominant card that had to be nerfed multiple times, and was part of the best deck in the game multiple times. War Machine has still yet to find an impactful home. What that means is that I do not suggest you open Marvel Boy the first day of Spotlights. On Thursday, on my channel, I release a video. I release a video every day, but Thursday's video in particular, I ask a bunch of top creators. People that have played the card a ton, that own the card, that sit near the top of the infinite leaderboard, the people who create decks that trickle down to the rest of the meta. I ask them what they think of the new cards, and then I present that to you. On Friday's video, I synthesize that information and present a recommendation for weekend missions. Do I think this card is worth opening for weekend missions? And then in Monday's video, I do a last chance review. We've now had way more gameplay because weekend missions happened. So we had Thursday, top players, Friday, synthesis, Monday, larger sample of data, and then Monday, because the card leaves Spotlights on Tuesday, I give a final recommendation. I found that this process leads to us finding really powerful cards that others miss on. I ended up recommending Ajax, who's in numerous top powerful meta decks, because by Monday, by the end of the week, I was able to learn that the early decks, the first couple days decks that were dragging down his stats, were the decks that were running like 18 negation cards instead of just a 2-card package of Hazmat and Ajax. Props to Cam Best for being the first person I know of to figure that combo out, that's all you needed for the card. But once you realize that that's the combo for Ajax, you recognize that this is going to be a potentially meta card, even if that's not the right meta for it. There are other cards like Sage, who we were able to learn that like in a non-Leech meta, Sage came out the same week that Leech was a 4-cost card that removed on reveal. Sage was bad that week. A week later, Leech was gone. Sage was incredible. By waiting and pulling from data and pulling from a larger sample, we're able to sort of predict more accurately, and we don't have to just theorycraft. So my general advice is, this card seems great. If you are the type of person who buys every card, feel free, obviously, right? This should not be your one card you skip. But if you are limited on resources, please wait until at least Friday's video, where we have a sample of the largest players, a look at the data, and some synthesis. And if you're going to buy it, you generally speaking like to buy it by the weekend, because that gives you the chance to get the extra tokens back from weekend mission. Every video releases at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every day, so if you're looking to get that extra information, that's when you check. But there is another chance that you should just open immediately upon turnover, and that depends on the other cards and whether you have them or not. So the first spotlight card here is Red Hulk. Red Hulk is a 6/10 series 5 card, 6,000 tokens. You can buy them right now without spotlights if you wanted to. When your opponent ends a turn with unspent energy, plus 3 power. This has been nerfed twice, and it's still probably the most played 6 in general decks. There's hyper-specific 6s, think Ultron, think Null, that go into decks that are doing a specific thing. But then there's Red Hulk, who can just sort of be put in as a top end to any deck. This is a very strong card, and one that I think it is worth having in your collection. Let's take a look at some Red Hulk decks. These are the types of decks that you're going to want to be playing should you decide to open for Red Hulk. First, we have a deck from Den of Marvel Snap Zone. He's the head writer. He does all the tier lists and stuff. You can also find him at den_CCG on Twitter, where he shares a deck every day. This is Den's deck. It is a mill deck that has a top end of Red Hulk. Basically, what you want to do here is you want to get rid of your opponent's cards, and then you can choose to either Red Hulk or play cards like Stature and US Agent together in order to mess up the opponent. Red Hulk puts a counter on your opponent. What Red Hulk's ability often does is it tells your opponent to play around Red Hulk, so then you figure out how they would play around Red Hulk, and you beat the thing that would beat Red Hulk by playing like a US Agent or a Stature there, or a card like that. If your opponent has no cards, you're much more likely to win. How does your opponent have no cards? Yondu, Cable, Zemo, Gladiator. And if they were going to have only one card left, well, guess what? Copycat. You're even removing a card from hand. Fundamentally, you're removing its ability by playing Spider-Ham. This deck is really cool and really powerful. If you like Red Hulk, this is a place to start looking. Next up, we have... Den is a French player as we continue our world tour. Coming from Nigeria, we have Derek, who plays as Havoc OP. Derek is not a streamer, but has been in and around the #1 spot on the Infinite leaderboard all season. Derek created this very cool and very fun Dracula dump deck. What a Dracula dump deck is a deck that tries to end the game by playing out every card from its hand except Red Hulk or Infinite, and then Dracula discards that. You get to play all the other cards, and you get the buff from Red Hulk or Infinite. This strategy has gotten us a big boost in power because now you can Gwenpool on 4 and make all those cheap cards you can play lane winners in and of themselves because you're emptying your hand or getting your hand down to 1 card. Strong Guy is a 3/9, which is amazing. This list doesn't always go off, but when it does, it's extremely powerful and extraordinarily fun. Red Hulk is a must-have here because you don't want to just play 10 power. You want something bigger, and Red Hulk is often bigger for that Dracula. Sometimes, however, after a Black Swan, you won't see Dracula, and you'll just play Ant-Man, Rocket, Hydra Bob, Titania, and be able to still drop a Red Hulk with all those other cards. Yes, that is as strong as it seems. Next up, we have Blob. Blob is a 6/0, Series 5, 6,000 tokens. Again, you can buy him now. On reveal, merge cards into your deck until this gains 13 or more power. This was nerfed twice in the past 2-3 weeks. First, it had its ongoing removed, and next it went from 15 power or more to 13 or more power. So it's weaker now. It's still extremely strong, and it still is a must for Arishem decks. I think this is the single high series card outside of maybe Loki that Arishem decks most badly want. So if you bought Arishem and you need Blob, I'm going to tell you right now, just open this week. Just open this week. You need Blob, you can open. Don't hesitate. If you get Marvel Boy in the way, congrats, you just got an extra deck, especially if you bought Gilgamesh. However, if you have Arishem, go get Blob. Let's take a look at Arishem Blob decks. Next, we're going to look at another top French Marvel Snap creator. Aoi Marvel Snap has updated his Arishem list. Please note, Blob is still here, even after the nerfs, to have more counters. This is a very powerful list. We've got Shang, Enchantress, and Shadow King in it. We've got Loki, so we can just play with the opponent's deck, Legion to scam some wins, and Nick Fury, fundamentally as an extra chance at Blob or Alive. This is a very, very powerful deck. This is one of the top 5 decks in Marvel Snap at worst, and if your opponent is not hard countering it, it is very, very hard to beat. Blob here is, again, slightly worse than he was, but still good. There's only one other place to really, really look for Blob decks, and that is Thanos. Thanos is half dead, not totally alive, not totally with us, but our friend Fazer Snap, coming from Scotland, has had great success with this deck in particular. Check out Fazer on Twitter, Fazer_Snap, where you're just trying to do a Thanos lockjaw thing, and Blob pops out and eats a bunch of big things and becomes huge. At the end of the game, Blob is likely the biggest thing that you can do. So you can also have Blob pop out a Lockjaw, and then that is just a set lane. Blob is predicted by Kaera, or made cheaper or bigger by Fastos. You'll love to see it. There's a lot to like about this list. This is, again, a very, very good place to be for Thanos. If you want to play the card, I don't urge you to play Thanos right now. I think it's sort of weak. But if you miss Thanos, if you want to play Blob in a Thanos deck, this is where I would go. Please note, Thanos decks are stupidly, crazily expensive right now in Marvel Snap. They have a greater high series card by volume than anything else in the game. Alright, so should you open this week? First and foremost, Marvel Boy seems very, very strong. Red Hulk has been the most versatile and useful 6+ card since release. Blob is a requirement if you have Arishem, even after the 2 nerfs. If you need Red Hulk or Blob, I think you should just open right now. I don't, if you have Arishem, obviously for Blob, and if you have any interest in playing Red Hulk decks, then I think you're perfectly fine to open for Marvel Boy. If you only need Marvel Boy, this is my reminder that Thursday, over the weekend, and Monday, there's a specific rule. I will have more information. I think this card is going to be incredibly strong, but I don't know it. I mean, I've played it, right? So I'm pretty damn sure that this is going to be extremely strong. But I'm not sure until this hits the larger meta. I am one person who played like 30 games versus a sample of hundreds or thousands of people, top of the ladder, playing tens of thousands of games. So we will have more information. I always like more information. Wait until at least Friday to make a decision for just Marvel Boy. But there is one other caveat here that I always urge you to consider. Some people really like meta decks. Some people really only like certain meta decks. I personally am a bounce player. I love bounce. I love movement. That is my type of thing. I want lots of little finicky things. Which means for me personally, while Blob and Red Hulk are incredible cards that I've played more than my fair share of because I content create and must know, I don't play them often. They're not cards I split a lot. They're not cards that I have a million boosters for. They're not in the type of deck I enjoy. You need to identify what types of decks you enjoy. Focus in there, especially if your resources are limited. If you have everything, you can play everything. But if you don't, identify what you're going to play. Use your resources where you're going to play the cards. Nothing feels worse than making a huge investment in a card for it to just sit in your collection, gathering virtual dust. So know what you like, play what you like. And with that, I'd like to say thank you to Second Dinner and Marvel Snap for this great opportunity. Hopefully, dear viewer, I've provided you with enough information to make the best decision about both Kate Bishop and Marvel Boy with your resources. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to hit sub at youtube.com/@snapjudgmentspod. Really appreciate it. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Props to Marvel Snap. See you soon. Peace.